My stomach was jumping up and down, but in a good way. Severus was looking at me, with a gleam in his eye that maybe meant he wanted to see me in the panties. Reaching up under my skirt, I slowly pulled down the ones I'd been wearing all day. That felt really good because my shaft was so hard it itched. The skirt hid my private parts until I leaned over to step into the pink panties, and that's when I heard him catch his breath. I felt a little scared but a lot excited at what I was doing. I wasn't the only guy who liked wearing girls' clothes, and Severus seemed to like me wearing them too. Pulling them up over my hips, I had to reach in to push my shaft down so they'd fit. But by now I was so hard, it stretched the pretty silk all out of shape. Would you like me to help you fit them better? Severus' silky voice matched my new panties, and felt just as good. Yes please, Severus. It won't go down. I glanced sideways at him, up through my eyelashes, the way I'd seen Hermione look at Ron once. His chuckle was a little hoarse, but his hands lifted me up onto his lap again. Such an adorable appeal. Afraid will be rewarded, the little one. But first, I think this would be a good time for a kiss, Harry. May I? I sat up straight and put my arms around his neck. With his hair so short, I could easily feel his skin under my fingers. I'd like that very much, Severus. I'm sure it will feel much better than my last one. I want to know why people like doing it so much. He smiled and lifted my chin with one hand while the other one rested on my skirt. Then his lips brushed over mine gently, once, twice, then they stayed on mine, while his breath ghosted over my cheek. My eyes had closed, and I had to gasp out loud to breathe. While my lips were parted, his tongue slid in a little and brushed against mine. It felt so good I wanted to kiss him forever. But then his hand moved and I felt it slide up under my skirt. My legs parted automatically to let him have more room. Those long fingers of his moved the waistband down away from my shaft, and then they were wrapped around me. I just couldn't help but moan at how good it felt, and his kiss got a little rougher. I really liked the fact I could make him lose some of his iron control. I tried to lift up my hips towards him, but his hands kept me anchored to his lap, rubbing my shaft with just a few strokes. He caught my scream in his mouth and my seed in his hand. Dazedly, I wondered why girls were necessary at all when boys could do this with each other. Severus scattered kisses over my face while I panted through coming. Severus, can we do this again? I opened my eyes and smiled up at him, taking my courage in hand and initiating a kiss on those thin lips I daydreamed about. I liked it. We will do whatever you wish to do, Harry, and nothing you do not wish. But we really need to clean up now and take down this silencing block. He licked his lips, and I wanted to kiss him again, just like that. But I did understand, and go back to being Mary and Uncle John. The first no, after we go shopping and come back home. May I touch you? He closed his eyes for a moment, then sighed. I think bathing tonight would be a good time for another lesson. All right. I bounced just a little and realized I was still half naked under my skirt. He was still really hard beneath me. Should I ask if I could help him? Oops, I feel kind of sticky. Severus chuckled and stood up, still holding me one-handed. His long fingers splayed over my behind, and suddenly that fluttery feeling was back, so I gasped, Harry. I clutched his neck tighter and wiggled a little to make that feeling stay. Why does it feel good when my underwear rubs there where you're touching me? He chuckled and carried me into the bathroom before setting me back down. He ran some water in the sink and washed his hands first, while I lifted my skirt to see what my new panties looked like on. My shaft was still hanging out, but the waistband was cutting into my balls, and I slid it out a little to relieve the pressure. Severus knelt beside me, with a damp washcloth and began to matter-of-factly wash my shaft. A male body has many different places that respond to stimulation. He gloved my shaft and slid a damp cloth up and down while I bit my lip because it felt so good. One of those places is the same hole where we eliminate our wastes. Every male has a special gland inside our anal channel which responds dramatically to a touch. Your body knows that, so it gets excited whenever there's a touch there. And he slid the cloth over my hip and down over my cheeks inside the silk. It felt really odd but also good, and I went up on my toes and tried to widen my legs when he tickled my hole. Then he was kissing me, and I hugged him close and opened my mouth to invite him in. I was getting hard again, and he seemed to know that would happen because he lifted my skirt and started rubbing my shaft with his calloused fingers. This time he pushed and pulled all along my length while his thumb rubbed my balls through the silk. That felt good too, and I came in his hand again while the terry cloth on his finger pushed into my hole just a little way. It felt odd instead of good, but maybe that it was the cloth. I thought to myself, what would just his finger feel like? I'd ask him tonight to do that again. He ended our kiss with a slight lick to my lips and re-at the cloth to clean me up again. You are beautiful everywhere, Harry. Now let me see you fit yourself into your new panties.
He was a natural at living, and I was going to go insane by the end of the week. But he just giggled and took himself into the pink silk panties, holding up his skirt rather shyly to show me how they looked. The ruffles were a nice touch. I decided and had him turn around so I could see that tight little arse encased in silk. He'd taken each caress with a curiosity that bode well for our future love life. Beautiful Harry, I caressed his lower cheeks, and he smiled at me over his shoulder. You are beautiful everywhere, and you will get tired of me telling you that. Impulsively he turned and threw his arms around my neck, squeezing me tight. I'll never get tired of hearing what you think about me, even if you make me blush with compliments. I've never had very many. Why is it considered bad form to say nice things to another guy? We're supposed to be stoic creatures with modest beliefs about ourselves. I ran my fingers down the soft skin of his throat and felt his heartbeat flutter there. While you're here and playing the part of a little girl, you will receive many, many compliments. That reminds me, I need to fix your eyes. He nodded eagerly and I had him sit on the toilet lid while I went to get my wand from his bedroom. When I came back, he was looking at his underwear again, and I thought he'd really enjoy the silk stockings and garter belt I'd gotten him. He was made for silk and satin. Going down on one knee, I placed my wand between his eyes and gathered my energy into a spear of power. A soft incantation, and the energy flowed into his retinas, finding and repairing the broken connections behind his eyeballs. A moment later, I asked him to open them and watched them widen before darting here and there with a look of awe in those beautiful green eyes. Thank you, thank you, thank you, Severus. He was kissing and strangling me with his hug, all the while thanking me in an excited voice. I laughed and picked him up to whirl him around just a little. His giggles made my soul sing with joy. I'd never felt like this before. Harry was a creature of sunshine and happiness who'd been kept in the dark most of his life. I would be damned if I contributed any more to his unhappiness than I already had. Severus, what is that? He was pointing at the bidet. It's a European invention called a bidet. It's for washing your private parts. I was already licking my lips at the thought of introducing him to the joys of water play. I promise I'll show you how to use it. I think you'll like it. He grinned at me and kissed me sweetly. Tonight, please, after our bath. Yes, of course. Now wash your hands and straighten your clothes so we can go shopping. I think we'll make stew for dinner so it can simmer while we're playing. He wiggled all over when I set him down on the ground, and I caressed his arse with a little slap that made him yelp and stick out his tongue at me. Oh, what I wanted to do with that tongue. My cock hatched and I adjusted him behind the jeans zipper. Later, I told him silently, then noticed Harry's curious gaze on my crotch. You'll get to meet him later, Harry, I reminded him, and he blushed. I dearly loved that reaction, and had to remind myself I was going straight to hell for sullying his innocence. But unless Voldemort or Dumbledore tracked us down within the next few days, I was going to teach Harry everything his body could feel. I'm ready, Uncle John. He finished drying his hands and smoothed his skirt down over his slender hips. Then let us be off, Mary. I waved my wand and took down the silencing charm. Do you have any favorite foods we should get? We talked about food while walking out to the car and driving down to the local grocer. I made sure he told me every dish he'd ever liked, so we had the right ingredients for our meals. The diagnostician spell had told me he was malnourished, and I was determined to make sure he put on a little weight before his birthday later in the summer. Stopping in at the local Marks and Spencer's, I bought him a silver-plated dresser set with a soft brush. I was looking forward to brushing his hair. He chose some pretty hair ribbons, and then shyly asked about nightgowns. I'd forgotten all about night clothes, and felt a frisson of desire flash through me. We took our time, and picked out one satin slip-like sheath, and one linen flowing gown, with buttons down the entire front, that I was looking forward to unbuttoning. Our grocery shopping went well, and he carried 2 of the big parcels, while I jiggled the rest back to the car. We were silent all the way home. He was too excited, and I was trying to keep my own desire from overwhelming me. I was going to have to take the edge off, or I'd frightened him by going too far, too quickly. It took us 2 trips to empty the car, and I got to introduce Mary to my nearest neighbor. Mrs. Tyler was a sweet old lady of 82, who found my niece simply charming, and so well behaved. We received an invitation to tea the next day, and we agreed to visit around 5. Then we locked the front door behind us, and I got hugged hard. I returned it, picking him up and making him giggle. I loved that beautiful sound, and silently vowed to free it every day. Dinner, Mary, we need to get this too, to cooking if we want to eat tonight. I carried him back to the kitchen, and he looked around eagerly, taking it all in. It wasn't a huge room, but it was big enough for 2 of us. We worked well together. The vegetables were all chopped up by him and added to the iron cook pot, while I braised the beef, to be added once the stock had boiled once. With a few herbs and a final stir, we put the lid on and lowered the temperature to a simmer. I haven't seen your bedroom yet, Uncle John. And where do you paint? Eager eyes looked up into mine. I'll show you my studio tomorrow, sweetheart. For now, let's put away your clothes. We got sidetracked earlier. I winked at him, and he laughed, slipping his little hand into mine and tugging me towards the door. Yes, please, Uncle John. He pulled me up the stairs, but I kept 2 steps below him so I could see that flash of pink that hardened me so quickly. He knew what I was doing, because he used his other hand to ruffle his skirt, making it right up a little more. Will you hang up my dresses while I put my under things in the dresser? I'd be glad to, Mary. You know, you're growing up now, and when you want to get your first bra, tell me so we can go shopping again. I fondled the pert little arse, and he gasped quietly before leaning back into the caress. Oh, Uncle John, I'm just flatter than flat. I don't think I'll ever grow big, like my friend Pansy. He fluttered his eyelashes at me, and I spanked him one swat, while he pouted. You are sweetly beautiful just the way you are, Mary, even if you never grow breasts. I deliberately brushed my fingers over his chest, and he gasped at the feel of another's touch there. Don't worry about it, at your age. I'll be 13 this summer. He reminded me with a flirtatious look, and the reminder that he was really going to be 15. Maybe there are exercises or something that will help me grow. The little imp, I pretended to scowl, but he just fluttered his eyelashes at me. Where had he learned that?